Hi, today we're going to talk about the different valve configurations on 64 through 72 GM A-body cars. So, talking about Chevelle, El Camino, Malibu, Cutlass, 442, Skylark, Monte Carlo, the whole kind of line of GM A-body cars. Been getting a lot of calls lately with some confusion about, what valves would have come factory on those vehicles and what to do when disc brake conversions have occurred and how that changes the brake line configuration. So what we're going to do is we'll start with the early years, 64 through 66. Every one of these vehicles from the factory would have had drum brakes, either manual drum or power drum was an option on some cars, and a single line master cylinder. So in 1967 the government made it law that you had to have a dual master cylinder and a brake warning light on every vehicle. So 64 and 66 weren't affected by that. So rather than this style of two-line master cylinders, it was just a single line master going down to a distribution block down on the frame is what the one line would run to out of the master cylinder. Distribution block on the frame that had 4 ports. One to receive the line from the single master cylinder, one to go out to the left front wheel, one port to go out to the right front wheel, and one port to run to the rear. So I actually don't have a single bowl master cylinder or a early distribution block with only those 4 ports because generally people, we just don't carry them. People don't generally want to replace those. Most often people are changing to a dual master cylinder, changing to disc brakes. So in 1967, all the way through 1970, we'll talk about the valve configurations where from 67 to 70, every disc brake or drum brake car had a distribution block mounted down on the frame, just like the one you see here. And I'm going to zoom in on all the valves we talk about here at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. We'll go through the port sizes and what they look like, so you can identify whether or not that's what you have on your vehicle. So every drum brake or disc brake vehicle had a distribution block from 1967 to 1970 mounted down on the frame with 5 ports in it. 2 lines coming down from the master cylinder going in, 1 line to run to the rear, 1 port to go to the left front wheel, 1 port to go to the right front wheel. So the difference between a drum brake car and a disc brake car is that on a drum brake car, that distribution block down on the frame, this block that routes the lines throughout the car, was the only block on the vehicle. So you would have just one valve from 67 to 70 mounted down on the frame, and then on a disc brake car, you have that same exact block, and you add in, from 67 to 69, you add in 1 additional valve. In 1970, there were 2 separate valves. So 67 to 69, you add in this, what we call a metering block. A metering block holds off pressure to the front brakes under really low braking conditions, so that the rear shoes have a little bit of additional time to expand. Otherwise, your front discs will grab quicker than the rear drums, which is just what they do naturally, and your car would kind of nosedive a little bit if you're missing that block. 1970, you have the same style of distribution block in the frame, metering block, and the proportioning valve, which actually mounted towards the back of the vehicle near the rear flex hose at the center of the rear end. And this proportioning valve would restrict pressure to the rear brakes under heavy braking conditions to keep the rear brake shoes from locking up before you can get adequate braking up to the front discs. So obviously the brake line configurations are going to change pretty dramatically depending on which blocks you're using. The port sizes are different, the mounting orientation is different, so it's really important before buying a brake line kit for these cars to know which one you're working with. We'll move on to 1971. 1971 was the first year that GM introduced what's called a combination valve. So the combination valve took the valves from 1970, the distribution block, metering block, and proportioning valve, and combined all of those into one block. And that block would have mounted in 71 and 72 down on the frame, about in the same location that the drum brake distribution blocks mount, but it was a different block altogether that we'll also do a close-up on. That 71 and 72 combination valve is seen right here, is also what you find in most disc brake conversion kits. So most aftermarket disc brake conversion kits for 1964 all the way through 72 will give you this combination valve that's a reproduction of a 71 and 72 factory combination valve. So it mounts in disc brake conversion kits up next to the master cylinder, which is going to completely change your brake line configuration, even if you have you know, a 1967 Chevelle, let's say, and you have this drum brake distribution block down on the frame, and then you change to disc brakes, and you start using a 71 combination valve that has different size ports, just a different configuration, and you mount it in a different location. Obviously, that's going to cause all of your brake lines to be a little different. So if any of that's confusing, give us a call. We'll make sure that we can always have you send a photo of your block on your car to confirm that we send you the correct brake line kit. Moving on from there, the other option that sometimes comes in disc brake conversion kits is an adjustable proportioning valve, which is used in conjunction with the drum brake distribution block, and it usually routes in line to the rear brake. So in the front rear brake line, there's a brake. You know, you either cut and reflare that line to install this, and we can get you a line set that accommodates that as well. Just need to specify that at checkout. You'll be asked a few questions that'll give us the information we need once you add a brake line kit to your car. Again, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, give us a call at 614-557-3442. Thanks a lot. All right, before we end the video here, I have images of each of the blocks that we talked about during the video here. You can pause it at whatever point you need to, but this will at least give you the port sizes and a good close-up image of them with a couple notes about what they are and what they do. Thanks.